everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Daily December 2019. This is day 21. So, I mean, that's 3 weeks in, which is pretty good. We're running into the home stretch here. Today, it's going to be another kind of short one. Not quite as short as the last one, but still there. Mostly because I have coaching session tonight. If you missed my last one, um, I am going to be doing some vocal coaching for a friend of mine, um, live on her Twitch channel. And the fun thing about this is she's studying to be a speech pathologist. And so she has extensive knowledge of just basically everything that goes into your voice working. She knows all the anatomy stuff and biology stuff. Like she understands the entire kind of system here, which is kind of important when you're singing or anytime you're making music. You should understand your instrument really well, not just from a musical standpoint, but from a technical standpoint too. I played sax for well over a decade, and understanding the physics behind sound, and how my reed worked, and all the different levers and buttons on the sax itself, how they all worked, was essential for me to be able to play at a high level, because I had to know if I was trying to hit an altissimo note and it wasn't coming out right, or I needed to understand, um, my trill fingerings and things like that. In order for those to all work, the instrument itself has to work. And then understanding more about the construction and, things like the shape of the neck, the type of mouthpiece you're using, the finish of the instrument. I actually, the saxophone I still have, my tenor, is unlacquered, which basically means, if you think of a saxophone that's real shiny and gold looking, that has a lacquer on it. That's what makes it shiny. It's just a coating that makes it shining. However, the lacquer also inhibits some of the vibration. It absorbs just a little bit of it. So while it looks prettier, it'll sound slightly different. And an unlacquered saxophone will have kind of a darker sound to it, because it doesn't have the lacquer um, limiting the vibration of the saxophone itself, which isn't technically what makes the sound. What makes the sound is the reed vibrating in the mouthpiece, and then it goes through the saxophone, and air escapes at different points, and that's what makes the pitch. And as the air goes through the whole thing, it acts as an echoing chamber, which makes it louder. So the sound actually comes from the length of the saxophone and the kind of just shape of it. But the metal itself and the material the saxophone is made from affects the timbre, or the feeling, the tone of the, not the pitch, but they call it the color of this sound. It just makes it feel different. It sounds different. Not a different pitch or anything, but it just has a different feeling to it. So, yeah, understanding that stuff helped me to pick out a better saxophone, to know what my sax can and can't do, all that. And the same is true of your voice. So me giving voice lessons basically to someone that already has all that knowledge is going to be interesting. So what I wanted to do was kind of to talk a little bit about the process I go through before I do a training session or a coaching session. Um, and the first thing I try to do is exactly what I just described. You need to know who you're training. Uh, for example, this training I'm going to be doing, um, if I was to spend half the training teaching her about the various echo chambers in the body and um, uh, how the air gets through her vocal cords and comes out, and talking about her soft palate and all these other things that are essential aspects of singing, I would be wasting her time and my time. And one of the biggest effects of that is when you waste their time teaching them things they already know. Um, it makes them less receptive to literally everything else you're going to try and teach them. Because they're going, well, I already know this, and they start to kind of shut down. So understanding um, what your student or trainee or whatever already knows is an essential part of training that a lot of trainers don't think about. Now, for me, I'm lucky enough that I've known the person I'm going to be coaching for a little while now. We've had quite a few conversations on Twitch, and she shared a lot of her knowledge with me. So going into this, I have an advantage in being able to ensure that I'm going to be able to help her get the most out of this session. Um, the other thing that's nice for me is I met her through Twitch Sings, uh, and that means I've seen her sing a lot. So I already have some ideas of stuff that I want to cover with her, based on things that I've already kind of taken note of. Oh, we should talk about this. We should talk about that. And yeah, that's another really useful thing is if you can observe your trainee doing whatever it is you're going to be training them first. That will help with that first step of finding out what they already know. The other thing that's really useful about that is finding out what wrong things they know. Teaching new skills is not an incredibly difficult thing. It takes patience, a little bit of know-how, and work. Unteaching bad skills is significantly harder because not only do you have to teach them the new skill they're supposed to know, but you also have to get them out of the bad habits they already have, which is ingrained. They're already used to doing it. You literally have to create new neural pathways in the brain in order to break a bad habit. But being able to pick out bad habits is a great thing because you can go, okay, if I have limited time, these are the things that I need to focus on, and these are the things that are going to take me the longest amount of time to fix. And you kind of at that point get to go on a kind of weight things on, okay, how important is this? Is it worth spending, all of my time trying to get her to unlearn this one thing? Or is it better if I spend my time just teaching new things, things like that? So that's kind of the first two steps, kind of boiled into one, is to know the person you're training and get as good an idea of their knowledge as you can. Now, if you don't have the ability, like I can look up Chaxis songs on Twitch Sings, I can look them up on Twitch, and I can just watch probably hours at this point of her just singing. So that's pretty easy. In a lot of cases, you're not going to have video documentation of somebody doing what you're going to teach them to do better. And in that case, taking time to do things like role plays, if that's something that you can do. I used to do that in sales all the time, where my training sessions would always start off with, okay, sell me a computer. And I would sit there and be very passive, let them do all the sales, and I would only react to the things they tell me and ask me. And it gave me a really good idea of the things that they felt they knew and came naturally to them in this sales process. The same is true about singing, playing any sort of an instrument, even things like martial arts. One of the things when I used to teach self-defense, the first thing I would do is I'd stand in front of the person I was going to train. And okay, I just want you to punch my hand right there. And they would look at me weird. I said, just punch it. Give it a little bit of force. I don't want you to break anything, but give a good amount of force to it. And that one punch would teach me a lot about their own martial ability. If they threw, a really bad punch, or they only used their arms, or their fist wasn't clenched very tight, and so it kind of collapsed when it hit. All these things are things that I can look and go, okay, so these are the things we need to focus on. If they throw a perfect punch at me, I go, okay, you understand how to strike. I can move on to the different things to help ensure that you can defend yourself. So, important first step: get to know your trainee and get to know what they know. The next thing I do to prepare for a training session, even if it's something that I've literally written training guides for. I wanted to say I wrote the book on. I haven't written any books. I'm thinking about it. But even if it's something where I literally have written training guides on it and done extensive amounts of work to where I consider myself 100% an expert, I will still research whatever it is I'm teaching or training. In this specific case, the first thing I did when we started setting this up is I went for and looked up warm-up exercises, breath control and breath support exercises and examples. Basically, anything that I could use to get my points across and just see what other experts are doing about this. And the funny thing is, a lot of times you're going to find conflicting information, because not everyone has the same opinion. Some people that consider themselves experts are anything but. I've seen a lot of bad advice, not only for singing and making music. My favorite thing in the world, I actually made a video about it forever ago, was I found these, I think it was like 13 self-defense tips. And it was spreading up around Facebook, and they were the worst self-defense tips ever. Like, there was nothing about them that was good. They actively recommended really bad things. I can't remember any of it right now, but it was the worst list of things I'd ever seen. And if anyone took any of that stuff to heart, bare minimum, they were going to hurt themselves. And in a situation where it's life and death, life or death, and they have to use those to try and save their own life, they're dead. Like, it was just horrible information. Um, so going out there and looking what other people say, both experts and non, will kind of get you an idea, because if someone is wanting to learn and grow enough to take a coaching session or training session, chances are they have looked at things like this somewhat as well, at least once in their life. And even if they haven't, there's a good chance other people they've worked with or just been around have given them these tips as well. Especially in the creative community, we are very much a very talkative bunch, and we are constantly sharing tips and tricks to get things to work. People that do musical theater, I cannot tell you how many times I have just started up a conversation with someone, found out they do musical theater, and we start trading recipes or products that help you preserve your throat. Because everyone that works in musical theater, whether professional or amateur, has had to do a show where their voice was raw or they were unwell, and yet they still had to go on stage. And you learn a lot of different ways to deal with that without destroying your voice. And there's literally hundreds of different ways to do it. Some of them are better than others. Some just work for certain people, but better than others. I can tell you the worst one I've seen that did work was I knew a guy that used to take shots of lemon juice before going out on stage, because the acidity of it would dissolve any kind of mucus in your throat or anything and help you give a good thing. The thing about taking shots of lemon juice is acid, especially just lemon juice on an empty stomach, will turn your stomach and make you throw up. And I know me personally, back when I did theater, I didn't eat before shows. I always ate after, at like a cast party, or a lot of times people that do a lot of shows, they would just after the show, oh, where are you guys going? Oh, we're going to this eating establishment. I don't know too many people that did lots of theaters that went to bars. Generally, like George Webb's is a really popular place. The diners in general are really popular because you can get decent food for cheap, and they're open super late. So after a show that ends at 9 or 10 o'clock, you can still get food. Apparently, Zordon wants me. So yeah, I've done my research on things, and some of the things I looked up, I was unaware of before, and I will be using them tonight. And other ones I looked up, and I'm like, oh, I remember doing that. You know, I have done that. I even have some of my own techniques that I've developed myself that I'll be using. So yeah, you know, do your homework before you train. Even if you are an expert, if this is your first time working with a new student or trainee, whatever you want to call them, look up what the conglomerate of knowledge is right now, because you may find a bunch of habits that you're going to have to break them of. You may find that techniques have changed since you were doing this yourself, and you may learn something new. But all of that is essential and important. And then finally, for me personally, I can't actually feel time passing anymore. It's part of we think it's my PTSD or my anxiety, but I have issues with derealization. So I can't tell when time has passed unless I'm looking at a clock or something. And even when I am like staring at a clock, I've done this. My perception of time will speed up and slow down. It's really weird and off-putting, and it doesn't make sense. But it basically means me showing up on time for anything is a crap shoot at best. So I have my phone over there. I literally could not function without my phone. Even despite the fact that I really don't have much I do anymore. Like I have therapy once a week, and that's really it. Um, I have, I think, something like 20 different alarms set in my phone, so I don't miss certain things like shows on Twitch I want to watch. Like I have I have an alarm for Critical Role and Seattle by Night. I have an alarm for, and I have an alarm for this training session. I have an alarm for meetings, the doctor's appointments. Like I physically and incapable of sticking to any sort of schedule without an alarm. So if I ever lost my phone, I would be screwed. Because again, without it, I basically live outside of time. So yeah, do what you need to make sure you're ready to start when you're supposed to start. And that could mean setting an alarm. It could mean one of the things I used to do. I would have handouts and things like that I used in my training. Print off a bunch of handouts for you. Have your outline there if you're going to use an outline. If you're doing a rewards system, which is a very effective training method, Pavlov got it right. Have your rewards, whether it's chocolate, money, gold stars, whatever. Have everything you need already all set up, and then go for it. Some training sessions will go well, some will go poorly. The outcome of the training session is somewhat connected to your ability as a trainer and your trainees' ability to learn. That's part of it. But there's a lot more that is completely out of your control. So you may be completely unprepared, did none of your homework, and just accidentally have a fantastic training session where your trainee just gets a lot of information, a lot of improvement in the time you have. Or you could have everything planned, note sheets and handouts and little candy bars for when they do well, and literally everything you could know your trainee down to their DNA, and it just goes poorly. Outside influences, tech issues. Your mind could go foggy. Your trainee's mind could go foggy. You could be having issues just communicating in general. So don't base your worth as a trainer on whether or not every single training session goes perfectly. Focus on anytime something goes right or wrong. Focus on, okay, what is it that I can learn from this so that the next session is even better. Failure is a fantastic teacher. Much, much better than success. So if you have a bad training session, that is great. Because you've just learned a lot about things you can improve, things you can try to anticipate, and it gives you time afterwards to go, okay, I can't anticipate this, I can't prepare for this, so when these things do happen, what can I do? If I'm teaching someone martial arts, uh, and they come to the session with a broken leg because on the way here uh, they got into an accident of some sort, broke their leg or their ankle, and now can barely walk. That's something that neither of us could really anticipate, but it doesn't mean the training session has to be wasted. There's a lot of, even if all they were coming to do was to learn kicks, there's a lot you can do without actually having to throw full powered kicks and things like that. Um, yeah, that's my little preparing for training primer. One of these days, I'm gonna write a book on this and become a multi-millionaire dude that goes around the world talking to people with a mic attached to my face. But until that day, I get to do vocal coaching for the first time ever. Which is another thing that worries me because I've been training for a long time. I've been a musician for a long time. I've taught and coached musical things, but I've never done just a one-to-one vocal coaching session. So this will be as much a learning experience for me as it will be for Chax. Anyway, in the description below, there'll be a link to Chax's Twitch channel where we're going to be streaming all this. You guys can come and watch me look like a moron for I have no idea how long I will be on it because my anxiety makes a lot of my choices for me. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We are officially going live in just over 4 hours from when I'm recording this, or just under 4 hours from when I'm recording this. By the time it uploads, it might be closer to 3 hours. Yeah, and then 9 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Check out Chax's YouTube channel, and let's see where this goes. This may be a massive, epic failure, and she may never speak to me again. Or it may be really cool and fun and open up in a new opportunity for me. Who knows? All right, but that's all for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, bye.